So next session, we have to stick to schedule. So today's next speaker, guest lecture is Dr. Gomati Sridhar. So, ma'am, Gomati ma'am, are you here, ma'am? Good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon, Snehalata. I'm here.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. Thank you for coming here. So let me introduce you to the participants.
Good afternoon, Gomati ma'am. How are you?
I'm good,
This is
thank you.
Madhuri.
Yes, Madhuri, how are you?
I'm good.
So Gomati ma'am is actually expert in virtual lab. So because she has attended the our advanced workshop on Chem Collective virtual lab. Some ago we had conducted it. So she has attended and now she can do, she can use it in her college and she can do a lot of experiments. So let me introduce Dr. Gomati to you all. So she completed MSc from IIT Bombay in the year 1989, then went on to do PhD at the University of Mumbai, and she completed it in 2018. And currently, she's associate professor and head of the Department of Chemistry, V.K. Krishnamenon College of Commerce and Economics in Bhandup, Mumbai. And she has a lot of achievements, and she's a quality controller at Swayam NPTEL program, which is sponsored by MHRD. She was selected as a mentor for development of open education course, and she is a mentor and observer for Indian team participating in International Chemistry Olympiad. So her research interests are catalysis, green synthesis, biodegradable solvents, etc. She has published many papers, and she has given talks in various conferences. So, ma'am, over to you, ma'am, now. So today she will talk about determination of pKa using Chem Collective virtual labs. She will do a demo also.
Yeah, thank you very much, Snehalata. Yes, but I would like all participants to know that I am a teacher and been so for many years now. And I'm very glad that there are many students here. Okay, and when the last March, I mean, 1 year ago, when all this started, we were out of touch with our students. We could not go to the labs, and it was a real stressful time, right? And so the all these virtual labs perform a very, very important function of being connected to your teaching of practicals, which in graduate syllabus forms a considerable amount of considerable part of the syllabus. Okay, but more and more I am of the opinion that the virtual labs fulfill a very important purpose, not only during the pandemic but also beyond it. Okay, so this is a good interface to teach students many things, and without as Lakshmi madam said yesterday, without worrying about safety aspects, at least. So somebody has asked, somebody has asked in the chat box, what are we doing now? Yes, Anjurani, yes, we are trying to do determination of pKa, but I was just introducing the topic. Okay, so so as I was saying that 1 year ago we were all bewildered as to how we will teach practicals to our students, and these virtual labs have afforded a very credible alternative to teaching practicals to our students. I was also hearing the questions before in the previous session as to some of these experiments are not part of our syllabus, and or we don't have the exact chemicals and all that. But my request to all of you, whether you are teachers or students, whether you are undergraduate, postgraduate, or school teachers, is as Snehalata said, best match your syllabus to the material available. And I'm very sure that in the next few years, the virtual labs will progress beyond your imagination. Okay, so you will be able to use that interface to do all the practicals that you wish to do in the laboratory. After all, in 1 year we have reached the stage where we can do so many experiments in the in the virtual mode. Okay, so I suggest to all of you, and this is something that I did for myself, that we keep an open mind, use these interfaces as much as possible, and uh, of course there are disadvantages, no one will dispute that, but there are also so many advantages. And use this interface not only during this time when we are not able to go to the lab, but also much beyond. Okay, so can see innumerable benefits, which include cost, it includes time, as well as sharing of concepts to students beyond over and beyond the college and the laboratory. Okay, with that brief introduction, I would like to share a small PowerPoint that I put together. I'm going to try and learn this, how to share. Yeah. Okay, so this is me, Gomati from BK Krishnamenon College, which is a small suburban college in Mumbai. Okay. Okay, so today's talk, we are going to, or today's experiment, I would not call it a talk. I just want to introduce what you can do while doing this experiment at whatever level it may be. Okay, so we are talking about determination of pK of acetic acid, but I would label this as determination of pK of a weak acid, right? Now, what would you do in the regular laboratory? In the regular laboratory, my students will do they will do a pH meter calibration. Okay, first, then they will do this titration, and then they will determine their pKa values, buffer capacity by drawing graphs. Okay, so the aim of this interface is, or our aim, what we are going to do is, can we do all this in the virtual mode? Okay, of course, pH meter is already calibrated, so we will not do pH meter calibration. But can we do all of these titrations and etc. in the virtual mode? So that is the question we want to answer today, right? Now, yesterday's talk by Lakshmi Madam talked about pre-lab and post-lab. So I'll just quickly, go through my experiences of incorporating pre-lab and post-lab exercises to a regular practical. Okay. Now, often what we do when we have these kind of exercises in the laboratory, students come, they come in groups, and then we allot them, give them a table, tell them to do the experiments. And often the important aspect of discussion is lost. Okay, because we have these sessions which are, labeled practicals, and we, take them literally, right? But my experience and my understanding has been that if you shave off a little bit of time from your regular practicals and spend it in a fruitful discussion of the background of these experiments, it creates a lifelong interest in the students. Okay, now if you're going to do the determination of pK of a weak acid, what all are the things that the student must know? Okay, and this is applicable whether we are doing it at school level, what we call here as junior college or undergraduate, whatever. Okay, uh, we all assume that the student knows what is the meaning of pH. Okay, sometimes you'll be surprised to know that some of the students cannot, really get this, right? So if you spend a minute or two in saying what is pH, what is pKa, and why is it important to do this? Okay, why is it necessary to do or determine the pKa of a weak acid? Okay, then it helps a lot in the students understanding, in the students acceptance of doing these practicals, not just because they have to do a practical, but with interest, and that interest lives with them for a lifetime. Okay, so yes, so you are teaching pH in the theory. Okay, so spend a minute or two saying what is pH. Okay, or you can even have a classroom discussion. Just ask what is pH, you will get the answer, what are the values. Okay, and why, what is a low pH value, what does it correspond to, what is a high pH value, what does it correspond to? Okay, so this takes a minute, but it will save you a lot of pain afterwards. Okay, you also know, students will also tell you the pH scale. Okay, and at this stage, it's a good thing to introduce them that pH can be measured in a variety of ways. Okay, so you can use universal indicators, you can where water is, where HCl is, and so on. So you give this idea that it is a scale, right? And students, this picture lives with them. Okay, and why is it important? It's important in the body. So body, if you suffer from acidosis, alkalosis, and so on. Okay, so this it's very important for the body to maintain the physiological pH of 7.4. So in addition to doing this, you're introducing this concept. Okay, you're relating what you're doing in the laboratory to their actual body. Okay, that's important because that often develops interest in the student. Okay, so you do give something to relate. I'm not saying you do this, but there are so much information. Give something that the student will immediately relate to. Okay, and so you say that pH can be measured by a variety of ways, and one of this is the pH meter. Okay, now sometimes it's possible that the students may never have seen the pH meter. We have it in when the students come to FIBSC, they never seen a pH meter. Okay, so this is a good time to introduce a pH meter and what it does. Okay, so it measures acidity, alkalinity. You can also show the pH meter and so show how it is calibrated, and emphasize that it's probably the most important, most convenient way of measuring the pH. Again, a minute, but it takes care of many questions that may arise later. At this stage also, students may know that during a titration you are using an indicator. Okay, often they don't know why are you using the required indicator. Okay, so it's the pH range of indicator is something that is not introduced at any level. Okay, whether it's undergraduate or postgraduate, to we don't do this, right? I'm sure some of the teachers must be doing this, but I'm talking about 60-70% in general. We miss out on this discussion. So why are we using phenolphthalein? Why are we using methyl orange? So this discussion takes care of the doubts that may arise in the student later. Okay, why can't we use methyl orange in this indicator? So this introduction of a pH range and a minute or two in this discussion is again very, very useful. So the actual experiment is determination of the pKa of acetic acid. Okay, so acetic acid. And why do we need to measure the pKa of acetic acid? Because it is a quantitative information about the acid strength. So the next question which a very intelligent student will ask is, why do you want this information? So there is an acid, it is there in the bottle. Why do you want this information about the pKa of this acid? Okay, and so it's a stage for which you can introduce the concept of buffers. Okay, what are buffers? Okay, so you say buffers can resist change in pH. Okay, and how it is made, what are the different types of buffers, what are its applications? So applications of buffers are immense. Okay, we have buffers in our body, and there are different types of buffers. You have carbonic acid buffers, you have the phosphate buffers, you have the hemoglobin buffering system, you have the proteins which form the buffering system, including amino acids, you have the plasma protein buffers. So immense application of buffers in the body. Okay, so using a simple experiment like determination of pKa in a weak acid, he immediately introduced the biological concept of buffering systems in the body fluids. Okay, so they are used in biological systems, pharmaceutical systems. So many of the injections, parenteral injections, or even your ointments and creams, etc., have to be maintained at particular pH. Otherwise, they spoil. You can even talk about pickles, where you have to maintain the pH. Otherwise, they may spoil over time. Okay, so why pH is important? Why this buffering, etc. This introduction in the pre-lab discussion, okay, just hooks the student. into this. Okay, types of buffers. I'm sure all of you are teaching types of buffers in the theory. Okay, so just relate this so that students can take this forward. Also have a small discussion. I'm not saying conduct a theory class. Okay, I have been often accused of this, that this is a practical class and we are spending some time in theory. All that I'm saying is, you spend, if your practical session is for 2 hours or 2 hours 15 minutes, whatever, can we take 15 minutes of that and do a small discussion and just set the stage, as it were, for doing the practicals? Okay, so you say how buffers work, what is this, and etc. And then immediately you come to this relationship. Okay, because that is the crux of your experiment today, that you want them to know the Henderson-Hasselbalch equation. Okay, so what did Henderson do, what did Hasselbalch do, and then how it evolved into the logarithmic scale and this very famous Henderson-Hasselbalch equation. Okay, so you do this. Okay, you can give this even as a handout. It's perfectly fine. You give it as a handout and ask the students to go through it before they come to the lab. Okay, so basically the pH of a buffer solution is equal to the pK of the acid when the ratio of the undissociated acid and the anion is equal to 1, because log 1, this part of it becomes 0. So pH is equal to pKa. Okay, so now you have reached a stage as to tell the student why are you doing this experiment. Okay, why are you using a pH meter? You're using a pH meter because you can measure the pH. Using the measurement of pH, you can find out the pKa of this weak acid. Okay, so this is a good stage. Okay, and believe me, pandemic or no pandemic, doesn't matter. Even afterwards, if you do this 15 minutes discussion and then you take your students to the lab, or do it in the lab, okay, for 15 minutes, do this discussion or give them a handout, tell them to read, have a 5-minute discussion. Many of the things take care of themselves. Many of the pain points take care of themselves. Okay, okay, so in the case of this weak acid, okay, this is the only what I should say, only teaching that you're doing. Only teaching in all this. This is not teaching, this is just a discussion. So in the case of the weak acid titration with a strong base, this situation occurs when, after adding, amount of base equal to half the amount required to completely neutralize the acid. Okay, so you have to say what is the amount required to neutralize the acid completely. You have to find out half of that amount, and that will give you the pH, which is equal to the pKa. Okay, also you also set the stage for introducing your post lab concept. What is the post lab concept? That is the concept of buffer capacity. Okay, so you say at this stage, in this buffering range, the pH of the solution, of the buffer solution, changes very slowly. Okay, so this is important so that you can prepare buffer solutions around this pH range. Okay, so now you have set yourself to do the actual experiment. Okay, so I'm going to have to go out of this. Okay, and then I'm going to share. Okay, so now I'm going to go to this interface. Snehalata, can you tell me if you can see this interface?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, we can see.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
so
we
this
can
is
see.
the
So,
yeah. Thank you. So this is the interface of doing the actual experiment. I think you have been doing this for the past 1 day or 2 days. Okay, and so you know how to do this. Yet I thought I will just show this to you. So let me put in a new workbench. Possible? Yeah, let me go to this. Okay, so what do you want? You want a weak acid, right? So you search for the weak acid, right? There is the weak acid. So when I was searching for the weak acid, I got 1 molar acetic acid. I don't want 1 molar. Okay, I wouldn't want to titrate 1 molar. So I will convert this 1 molar to 0.1 molar because I also saw under strong basis, I saw 0.1 molar NaOH. Okay, so I have a 0.1 molar NaOH, which will be my burette solution. And so in order to calculate this or do this titration, I will convert this 1 molar acetic acid to 0.1 molar. How will I do that? So that is my first step. Okay, any step can be first, but this is how I went about it. Okay, so I will take a volumetric flask of 100 ml. Okay, I will pour some acetic acid to it. So I did some calculation. Okay, so I said I will take 10 ml of 10 ml of 1 molar acetic acid. Okay, and I poured this. I brought this here. Now I want this to be, converted. So I will take distilled water. I will pour some distilled water into this. Okay, so I will pour, let me say, what, 90 ml. Okay, so this is rough calculation. I'm sure all of you can do your calculations. So I have this, I'm going to keep this away now. I don't need this anymore. So I will rename this. I will say that this is 0.1 molar NaOH. I'm sorry, that is wrong. 0.1 normal acetic acid. Okay, so I have my this is my titrant. This is my titrant. So I'll keep this here. Now, in order to do this titration, I need to take this in the Erlenmeyer flask. So I will do that first. I will take a 250 ml Erlenmeyer flask, and I will pour this here. And I will, because I want the points. Remember, we are trying to draw a titration curve. Okay, so I will do, say, 20 ml. I will take 20 ml of the 0.1 normal molar acetic acid into the Erlenmeyer flask. Okay, so now this job is done. I'll keep this away and I will rename this. Okay, so it's a good idea to teach or do if you're a student to rename so that later on you don't search for your stuff. As a teacher, please make it a point to inculcate this habit of labeling things. Okay, I see students, they keep it in colorless solutions, they keep it in different test tubes, and then they don't know what they are doing. Okay, so it's always better to train the students to rename stuff. Okay, so rename this. So this is having what did I do? Did I take this? Yeah, I took 20 ml. Okay, I would rather you can also, let me cancel this for a minute. So I took this, I poured 20 ml, but because we are doing titration, that is a bad thing to do. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to delete this. I'm going to take a another Erlenmeyer flask. Okay, and I'm going to take exactly 20 ml. So what am I going to do? I'm going to take a pipette. Okay, I'm going to take a 10 ml pipette. Okay, so I'm going to withdraw 10 ml. Okay, so this will be, bring it here and put it into this, pour it, right? I'm going to do it once more. Okay, so now this Erlenmeyer flask, I'm going to keep this away. So this Erlenmeyer flask now I'm going to rename has 20 ml of 0.1 molar acetic acid. You get the idea, okay? Now I have to do a titration, so I will bring out the burette. I will pour the NaOH into this and say 50 ml. Okay, so this is here, keep it away, keep all the things that you don't want away, okay? And now this is your titration assembly, right? So this has, the burette has 0.1 molar NaOH, your Erlenmeyer flask has 20 ml of 0.1 molar acetic acid. Now you require an indicator, right? So you go to the indicator and pick up phenolphthalein. Okay, so recommended is 0.2 ml of phenolphthalein, right? So you pour this, okay, and so you will see here that your conical flask, that is this Erlenmeyer flask, has 20 ml of 0.1 molar acetic acid and a 0.2 ml of your indicator, right? Now, what all you want to do now? You want to get the endpoint, and you also want points for being able to draw the graph, right? So I will, I have already put this radio button on for the spectrometer. All of you know that phenolphthalein is colorless in acidic solution. Okay, the moment the acid is neutralized, you will see some colors in this pH range. Okay, and all this, it will show you the equivalence point. And then if you do the titration, and you can decide how to do the titration, you can add in 1 ml, 2 ml, and so on, or 0.5 or 0.2 as the case, as the number of points that you wish. Accordingly, you can also note the pH value. Okay, so yes, I think madam is saying that pH is the 0 not adjusted. So let me click on this. Okay, so you see volume 50 ml. Yes, ma'am. Can you see that it is 50 ml is adjusted?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
this is a 50 ml burette, has 50 ml of solution. This is Erlenmeyer flask containing 20 ml of the acetic acid. And if I click on this, I also know this 0.2 is because I've added the indicator, right? And now it's a question of keeping, okay, I'll keep this on top, and this is going to be, yeah, okay. So this was what was shown, right? But that's how it is. These are some of the limitations of the interface. Okay. Now you have to decide how you want to do it. Okay. How do I want to do it? Now I know that this is 20 ml of 0.1 molar. This is also 0.1 molar. So, you know, roughly you're expecting the equivalence point around 20. But you want to see the jump in the pH, because that is the whole aim of this titration. We are going to draw the what is called as a titration curve. Okay, I am going to now go to the interface and also show you, yeah, share what I did when I actually did this experiment. Okay, so let me show you this. Okay, so this is my Excel file, right? So let me see if I can show you the Excel file. So what I did was I said, okay, 1 to 12, I added in aliquots of 1 ml each. Okay, I also noted the pH. Then from 12 onwards, no particular reason, from 12 onwards, I added in, aliquots of 0.5, so that closer to the end point, I got a large number of points. Okay, and then I went ahead and, towards the end point, you could also do in aliquots of 0.2 ml. Okay, and you have decide where you want to stop the titration. Okay, and so and if you keep the chart open, as you enter points in the Excel, your graph gets drawn. Okay, so this is the way it can be done. Let me go back to the interface. Yeah, so this is, let me go back to my original workbench. Okay, so
Ma'am, can you show a little bit of titration? Like you have got
yes,
the end
yes,
point
yes.
here.
Yeah, I will show you the titration also.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So, yeah. So, in fact, I wanted to develop another Excel sheet, but I think I'm loading the application too much. So I'll just show this and then show. I've already shown you the Excel file. Okay. So I say 1.0 here. I'm pouring, right? So from the burette, I'm pouring into this. So you get this. When you do this, you will see that there is nothing here because the solution is still colorless. Okay, but you can see the pH. So at 1 ml, after titration, the pH is 3.51, which you can note in your Excel sheet. Okay, you can
Excuse
continue.
me, ma'am.
Yeah,
Sorry to interrupt. One
no problem.
participant is asking, ma'am, I think burette is not adjusted to 0.
No, I
But
showed her.
I think
I
I
showed
can,
her.
yeah, I can explain that because it fills up little bit in the stopper where there is stopper. So that's
Ah,
why exactly 50 ml it's not shown. The
mm,
marking at the top, it is slightly lesser. I mean, it's not adjusted to 0. But
yeah.
the exact ml you have used up in the from the burette is shown in the solution info panel if you click on the burette after the experiment.
Yes,
Yes,
yes, yes.
so
I'd
you can show
already
that,
showed
ma'am,
her.
actually.
Yeah,
Yeah, you
I
can show
showed
that,
her.
ma'am.
I
Yeah, yeah,
showed her already. So
yeah,
I
yeah.
have, at the beginning I showed her 50 ml. This is now I've added 1 ml, so it is 49.0. So not to worry
Yes.
about,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah. I
The
think we teach lower meniscus adjustment, upper meniscus adjustment, and all that. So when when you see this, they think that the meniscus is not properly adjusted. But these are the limitations of the interface, but be sure that there is exactly 50 ml in the burette and you're using and you have just used 1 ml. Is that
and
acceptable?
we have the advantage of checking exactly after the endpoint is reached. It will show exactly how much we have used.
Yes, correct. So yeah, so you can transfer 1 ml again. So this will be 2 ml. If you click on the burette, it is shown the volume is 48 ml. If you click on the conical flask, you will see 20 ml you started with, 0.2 ml was your indicator, and now it is 22.2, which indicates that you added 2 ml. You can note the pH in the Excel sheet. Okay. And this is exactly how we do titration in the real lab also. Okay. You do one more ml and so on, and you can keep on going. Okay. Keep a note here, right? The moment you can see some color here, that point indicates the equivalence point. Okay. But we will do the titration beyond the equivalence point because we want the other points also to draw a nice, smooth titration curve. Okay. So that's what I did in my workbench. Okay. So this is where somewhere I am. Okay, so I have some 25, 26 ml added, and this is my Excel sheet. Can you see the Excel sheet?
Yes, yes, ma'am. Yeah, we can
Yes,
see. Yes.
yeah. So this is the Excel sheet. Okay. So I added a few, 4, 5 ml, and then I created this chart, and it is really very beautiful to see as you keep on adding the values in the Excel sheet, the chart goes on forming. Okay, so you can teach simultaneously, you can teach your students how to use Excel. Okay, maybe students are so savvy, they may teach us, but this chart forms as you keep on inputting values into your Excel sheet, and you can get this. Okay, you can manipulate the axis. Okay, so earlier my axis only showed 2, 4, 6 on the pH scale, and then I manipulated it because I want this pH 7. I also said that I want internal, otherwise instead of 5 interval, I did 1 unit as the interval, and now I know, now it is a simple matter of dropping a perpendicular from this 7 pH 7 and drop a perpendicular, that will give me the equivalence point, and that is something like 19 point something. Okay, half of that will be the half equivalence point, and that also uh, if if it is 19.9, let's say it will be something like 9 point something, and that 9 point something will indicate the pH at which the two units, the cation and undissociated is equal. So that will be the pH equal to the pKa of the weak acid. Okay, so you can complete this experiment. Also, if I go to the interface, okay, if I go to the interface, you can see that there are other weak acids also. In theory, we teach, I saw a dichloroacetic acid. Okay, I think I saw maybe you can, you know, compare acetic acid and dichloroacetic acid, and see how they compare in terms of weakness of their, in terms of their acidity. So you can actually do this, right? So and further, what else is possible? Okay, so yesterday, so this was the actual experiment. I'm sure all of you will figure out and do it very beautifully. If you want more points, you do with small volumes. Uh, I suggest that initially you can do with bigger aliquots, and then closer to the end point, you can do with a smaller number of aliquots. Okay, so once this is over, is it all? No, you can, you know, really take this experiment forward. Okay, so then you talk about and then you can talk about this titration curve. Okay, so this is the theoretical titration curve. So at pH 7, you see at what is the volume. Okay, that gives you the endpoint of the titration. Half of this will give you the pKa. So you get a pKa value directly from the graph. Okay, and then this is an ideal point to introduce this term, which is called as buffer capacity, which quantifies the change in the pH of the solution caused by addition of a strong acid or strong base. You can immediately show them this equation for buffer capacity. You know, in as much as I remember what I taught in 12th long ago, we just say what is buffer capacity, but we never, you know, use it for calculations. And so we can, you know, give this important idea that buffer solutions which have a pH equal to pKa value. Okay, so you prepare a buffer solution which is having a pH exactly equal to the pKa. This buffer solution will have the greatest buffering capacity. Okay, and this pH, if it is in this range, pKa plus or minus 1, okay, will you have the best capacity to buffer. Okay, so the greater the buffer capacity, the better it is able to handle the addition of H plus or OH minus, and choose a buffer whose pKa, whose pH is equal to, is very close to the pKa. Okay, I was going through the interface, and the interface consists of a problem of proteins as a buffer. Okay, now you know proteins have both carboxylic acid groups and amino groups, and therefore they are amongst the buffers that are used in our body. Okay, so I'm going to show you that problem, which is the final problem in the interface. Okay, so if you go to this, I was seeing this, for this, there is this protein problem. Okay, this is a buffer creation problem. You can see the problem description. Okay, so you have the sodium acetate acetic acid. So you can ask your students to, solve this problem. What is the pH? They have given you the pH. How will you prepare this pH? You want a pH buffer of pH 3.75. So what is the concentration that you should add to this, and so on. So this can, proceed. Let me show you the other problem also of proteins. It
Yes,
was very nice.
yes, Gomati ma'am. The morning, the participants did a tutorial on buffer solutions actually. So
Oh,
they
okay. So
prepared acetic acid buffer. So your lecture is very nice. It'll add more information to that. Yeah.
okay.
So
Oh, great, great.
yeah, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. So there is this, I think I am not able to find that protein problem. I found that problem very good. Okay. So basically what I'm trying to say, I mean, I am quite at the end of my, discussion. What I'm trying to say is, please divide your experiment and use the virtual lab very creatively, right? Use it, because then we can form a pressure group and ask what are the other things that we want in this chem collective, right? I am very, very optimistic that within the next, I don't know, 6 months, 1 year, whatever time frame, that we will have, interfaces which will be completely flexible, that we will be able to do all our practicals on demand, right, with the kind of interfaces that will be developed. But for that, teachers and students must become comfortable using the interface, right? So whether it is Come Collective or other things that are available, it is up to us to use and demonstrate its usefulness and demand that uh, we get interfaces that will be helpful for us to show all the different kind of practicals that we do in our regular laboratory. There is a question on organic reaction mechanisms. Okay, there are I don't know about I don't know the I'm not I have to think about what kind of experiments you will do to show organic reaction mechanism, but there are many sites that will show you how to demonstrate organic reaction mechanisms to the students. Okay, and the sky is the
Ma'am,
limit, actually.
ma'am,
Yeah,
excuse me, ma'am. You were
no
looking
problem.
for the protein problem that is
Yeah,
in strong acid bases. There is a folder called as pKa and weak acid problem. It's
yeah,
there. I could locate
yeah.
that.
Okay. Yeah. Correct. Yeah, I was so surprised that I couldn't find it. Okay, so this is the protein problem description, right? So this utilizes protein that acts as a weak acid. Okay, so you have to use your what you have done in this weak acid pKa determination, so that you can say at what pH will this ratio be, 0.75, and you can create this solution. Okay, and demonstrate how you can use this for creating this protein problem, which effectively demonstrates that proteins in our body are buffering mechanisms. Okay, so if a student, he's slowly assimilating his ideas, and so what do proteins do? Proteins build up the body, they are required for muscles, etc. But beyond that, proteins are also important buffering mechanisms, and this problem, with using this problem, you can demonstrate how they are used up by the body. Okay, so basically we started with a simple experiment, pKa of acetic acid, but don't limit yourself to simply doing this experiment and telling the students to draw a graph and forget about it. Please relate both in the pre-lab as well as related to the in the post lab, and see how this it can become a big experiment, right? Please explore the interface and also see whether you can give small projects to the students using these kind of experiments. Okay, in terms of what you can even extend it to carbonic acid bicarbonate buffer, or how to create phosphate buffers are even more interesting because they have 3 pKa, so you can prepare buffers at 3 different pHs. Okay, so that is another thing that the students can explore. Don't think that you need to teach everything. You need to teach the concept so that they understand the concept very strongly. But application of the concept, you can tell the students, and you believe me, students are much more imaginative, in their work. So if you give them this idea, then they will come up with solutions to many problems, right? Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you, Snehalata. I enjoyed this. I hope I did a reasonably good job of this presentation.
Thank you, ma'am. It was excellent, actually. There was so much of information on pKa, buffers, and biological systems that participants may have really enjoyed your talk. And very importantly, how to use Collective Virtual Lab to do this experiment and get the pKa of acetic acid. That is very good, actually. That is
Yes.
very good. We don't have a tutorial on this, but we are planning to make one. But this was very useful. There is dichloroacetic acid also in the weak acids, and there are a host of other weak acids and their conjugate bases and other acid-based solutions. All the participants can try out and design their own experiments on this, and then see how it works. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. Thank you for coming
Thank you,
here.
Snehalata.
Any questions, participants, before we move on to the next session? Any questions? Maybe I'll just unmute all, okay, so that they can ask questions. Okay, I have unmute. Any questions for Dr. Gomati Sridhar?
Hello.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, you can ask.
Yeah, ma'am, good afternoon first. I'm Dr. Kamini Sharma. Ma'am, I would like to ask about the graph which you have shown with your experiment. The one of the point was lying like near the neutralization point. As you said, it is a equivalence point, and the value goes around 9, and one value goes around just with the base nearly 6 point something. So, do we think that neutralization with acid-base titration is exactly the 7? But in this case, since you have given more of the points, what exactly should be the neutralization point here?
Okay, so see, I think we teach in theory that when you neutralize a weak acid with a strong base, okay, the pH just shoots up. Okay, that's because the strong acid, has so much more OH minus ions that it completely the pH immediately shoots up. I don't think I have understood your question, but basically we say equivalence is whenever is the pH 7, right? So
Yeah.
we draw this titration curve, okay? We don't get a point at pH 7 because the pH doesn't stop there; it just goes on. So we draw a line at pH 7 and drop a perpendicular on the volume axis and get the volume for complete neutralization.
Ma'am, I have one doubt, ma'am. Can I ask, ma'am? Please, ma'am.
Yeah, please. Yeah.
Ma'am, after the endpoint, ma'am, you said, ma'am, you are titrating more. After the endpoint, also you are doing the titrating. You got the points, ma'am. What about?
Yes,
Please,
yes.
can you explain, ma'am?
See. What I did. This graph is quite explanatory. Um, uh, but if you're wanting your students to do, you tell them to titrate in aliquots of 0.5 ml. Okay, right from the beginning, just like we do in our regular practicals, right? What I did was I took 1 ml each, so you can see the points are well separated. Then what I did randomly at volume 12, I started titrating in aliquots of 0.5 ml each. Okay, so that I get the smooth curve. That's all. I can do 1 ml here also. That is no
Okay.
problem. I can still get this graph, and the volume will be also more or less what we get with this graph. But you see, I did this so that I get this smooth curve. Okay, and even after that, I did a few more titrations. Okay, I should have continued for some more time. So you will get this just like you got this tail, you will get another piece here. But our focus of interest is here, right? So you drop a perpendicular and find the volume. That's all.
Okay.
And
Okay.
find
For finding the endpoint, mostly you are doing exactly.
yes,
Yes.
correct. And the definition you have already established with the student that the half volume is the half equivalence point.
Okay,
Okay,
ma'am.
and then you do the half of whatever volume you get, and you get the half equivalence point. That's all.
That is
I mean,
PKA. That is PKA.
that is pKa, correct.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, madam.
so
Thank you.
by doing this, what you're trying to say, what are you conveying this to the student? You're saying that you don't do this logarithmic calculations. When I was a student, I remember that for every volume I added, I calculated the pH.
Okay.
We didn't do it by pH meter. We added one, we calculated the pH, uh, 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 drew the graph with calculated pH values. Okay, and it's really interesting because it gives you an insight as to what happens in solution with every drop of the titrant that you are adding. Okay, I have done this calculation, but since we have our pH meter and it is even when students do it in my lab now in my college, I ask them to show whether they know how to do the calculation of the pH at every point. Okay, often they are lost, right? So it's a good exercise to teach them how to calculate the pH at every value, at every point after addition of every ml. Calculate or what you should say, follow the concentration of each and every species in the solution. Okay, but here basically I just wanted a smooth curve and I wanted to show the steep rise. So I did, closer to the equivalence point, I took 0.5 ml. Here also I have taken 0.5 ml, and I was continuing, and I started with 1 ml so that I get this graph. That's all.
Okay, thank you very much, ma'am.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you very much, Snehalata. I'll take your leave. Yeah.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for coming, and it was really, really useful for all the participants. And hope they will teach this to their students, because it was really very clear, all the concepts, and you have explained it so nicely, ma'am. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, bye.
Snehalata ma'am.
Yes, yes, yes.
Ma'am, I'm Jyoti from Coimbatore.
Yes, ma'am. Jyoti,
Ma'am,
ma'am.
your videos and all those things we are learning upfront, we are learning, it's really wonderful, and we'll be using it back in our classes, and it'll really help us to bridge the gap between the online and offline mode. It will be really good. But most of the videos, what we are learning today, we say it has got a lot of connection towards biochemistry, chemistry in the higher level. So my humble request would be, most of the children who are in grade 11 and grade 12, either it is from CBSE or from metric or any base, ma'am, they are only starting to handle the apparatus only in class 11 and 12. Because up to grade 10, they handle maybe maximum is only the test tubes. And even all the glassware, Erlen Mayer's flask and all those things are, are basics. So if you could, even the participants here also, if they could post some videos related to, the basics of the do's and don'ts of the apparatus, ma'am. That will be a really very good one.
Okay, sorry, ma'am. I think I lost my connection.
Yeah,
No
yeah. Okay.
problem, no problem.
Thank you,
I
ma'am.
was
The
just
suggestion
suggesting
is
that, because since the children are new to all the apparatus, ma'am, grade 11 and grade 12, any board from that matter, whether they are from higher secondary or from CBSE senior secondary, because I've taught in both the places. So what happens is they're all new to all the apparatus. So if we could have one or two videos related to, the do's and don'ts, how to pipette out, like they should not use the thumb finger, they have to use the pointing finger. Like that, if we could have some basic tutorials, the participants also could plan for something like that.
Yes,
Of
ma'am. The
real
suggestion
good
is
help
very,
to them.
very good, ma'am. We'll take it up. But
Please,
the problem is that in virtual labs interface, we didn't see lot of many apparatus, but very basic apparatus are there.
no, ma'am, the
And
same apparatus. See, for
same
example, you're talking about the pipette, burette, those apparatus, even though for us, for adults, it is easier for us to get used, even if we are not going to attend offline classes. But the children who are using this apparatus, see, for example, my grade 11, still now they have not come into the lab because the 12th standard practicals preparation and all those things are going on. So only when they are handling for the first time, they have the fear of the apparatus might break, they might suck the solution inside. So if you could for some tutorial to make sure that they know the precautionary measures what they have to take handling all these apparatus. This is only a suggestion, that's it.
very good suggestion, ma'am. We'll surely do it, and
Yes, ma'am.
maybe you can also contribute to the content.
Definitely, ma'am,
We'll
because my
contact
thought is
you.
going only there, because I have done all these
Absolutely,
protein
ma'am.
analysis being a biochemistry student.
Yeah. So, ma'am, can you put your email ID on the chat box separately to me privately? Then
Yes,
I
ma'am,
can,
definitely,
yeah.
ma'am, definitely. I've
Yeah,
noted down
yeah.
all your email IDs, but I
Yeah.
thought I'll just share this.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay,
Definitely, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Definitely,
Thank
we'll
you.
write to you. We have your email ID actually. Yeah,
Okay,
I forgot.
okay. Even the others also, because a lot of youngsters are there in the group, and definitely even new people also can contribute to this, because it's going to help not only a particular set of students, it's going to be where whomever using this labs, it will be of great help to them, immense help to them.
Actually, your contribution can be put up in our website also, because tomorrow we are going to show you how you can contribute, and you can make some content available for all of the interested other teachers.
Okay.
Teachers and students. So we'll tell you that, ma'am, tomorrow.
Okay,
You
ma'am.
can
Thank
definitely
you.
contribute in this regard. Okay.
Thank you.
Very good suggestion. Thank you, ma'am. Yeah.